My parents sold my college fund to pay for my sister's trip, so I refused contact and invested in my future beyond their control. I'm a 19-year-old guy, and for most of my life, I genuinely believed my family was fair. Maybe not perfect, maybe not affectionate like the families you see in movies, but fair enough that if you worked hard, they'd show up for you. That belief came mostly from my grandmother, the only person who ever made me feel like my dreams mattered. Before she died, she created a college fund specifically for me. She told me, "You deserve a future that isn't defined by struggle," and I held on to those words like they were a promise carved into stone. I grew up believing that if I stayed responsible, didn't get in trouble, and kept my grades high, everything would line up. And I did exactly that. I studied late, worked part-time at a grocery store, and skipped out on parties because I didn't want to waste the opportunity she left me. I trusted my parents when they said they'd handle the fund and make sure it's safe. I never questioned them. Why would I? They were my parents. Lily, my younger sister, was the opposite of me in almost every category. Loud, emotional, dramatic, but charming enough that everyone excused it. Teachers, family, friends, even strangers somehow always found her chaos endearing. Whenever she had a meltdown, my parents rushed to soothe her, while I was expected to be the calm one, the responsible one, the one who understood. I told myself it was normal. Every family had its dynamics, right? But over the last few months, I started catching little things. My parents whispering about money trouble. Mom stressing over bills. Dad staying up late, scrolling through unpaid notices. I didn't think much of it at first. I assumed it had nothing to do with me or my college plans. Then, out of nowhere, my phone buzzed one evening. A text from my mom. "We need to talk about college." I stared at those words, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a cold knot of dread form in my stomach, like something was about to break, and I had no idea what. When my mom sent that text, my stomach dropped so hard it felt like gravity doubled. I remember sitting on the edge of my bed, rereading those 7 words over and over, trying to convince myself it was something harmless. Maybe she wanted to talk about dorm options. Maybe financial aid forms. Maybe she was just stressed. But deep down, something in me already knew this wasn't normal. This wasn't routine. This was a warning. When I walked into the living room, both my parents were already seated, stiff and strangely formal, like they were about to fire me from a job I didn't know I had. My dad cleared his throat. My mom folded her hands. Nobody looked at me. The air felt thick, heavy, tense, like the whole house was holding its breath. "What's going on?" I asked, trying to sound calm even though my chest was buzzing. My mom finally looked up. "We need to explain something," she said, her voice soft in a way I'd never heard before. My dad jumped in. "Things have been tight lately." "Tighter than you realize." I frowned, not understanding. "Okay, but what does that have to do with my college?" My mom exhaled, eyes glistening as if she were the victim here. "Honey, we had to make a tough decision. For the family." My heart started pounding. "What decision?" She swallowed hard. "We used your college fund." For a moment, everything stopped. The room, the air, my body, frozen. I could hear my pulse in my ears like someone was hitting a drum underwater. "You, what?" I whispered. My dad nodded like this was reasonable. "We needed it. It wasn't enough to fix everything, but it helped." My voice cracked. "Where did it go?" Before either of them could answer, Lily's voice came from the hallway, casual, almost cheerful. "Oh, my trip. You know, Europe?" Mom and Dad said it was fine. The world tilted. The betrayal was so sharp it felt physical. And all I could do was stand there, staring at the people I trusted most, wondering how the hell they thought I would ever be okay with this. I don't even remember sitting down, but suddenly I was on the couch, staring at the floor while my parents talked at me like I was a child throwing a tantrum. My mind kept circling the same thought: they spent my future on a vacation. Every time I tried to ask how they could possibly justify it, they cut me off. My dad leaned back, arms folded, and said, "Don't make this bigger than it is." My mom added, "We're a family. Sometimes sacrifices have to be made. But the word sacrifices felt like sandpaper scraping against my skin because the only one sacrificing anything was me. I can't believe you did this, I said quietly. Mom's eyes hardened in an instant. Don't start with that tone, she snapped. We didn't do anything wrong. You're just being dramatic. My dad shook his head. College funds aren't a guarantee. You'll manage. You're smart. And Lily needed that trip, Mom added, voice softening protectively. She was stressed, she's been struggling emotionally. Lily picked that exact moment to stroll into the room, phone in hand, glowing from the thousands of likes she'd gotten on her travel posts. She smirked a little when she saw me. Seriously, you're still mad? Chill. It's not like it was your money. It was family money. Something in me snapped. It was my fund. Grandma made it for me. My mom instantly bristled. Don't you dare guilt trip us with your grandmother. She'd want Lily to be happy too. That sentence almost made me feel sick. Meanwhile, Lily kept posting updates, airport selfies, fancy dinners, artsy European streets, each one twisting the knife a little deeper. And every time I confronted my parents about the fund, they acted like I was the villain. You're ruining the family energy, my mom said one night. You should be proud Lily got this opportunity, my dad added. You're jealous, Lily said with a smirk. That was the moment I finally understood something horrifying. They weren't confused. They weren't stressed. They had chosen this. And they expected me to swallow it quietly. After days of being told I was selfish and overreacting, something inside me shifted from shock to suspicion. My grandmother wasn't the type of woman who left things vague. She planned everything with precision, from her weekly meals to her will. So I dug through the old filing cabinet where we kept all her documents. The metal drawer screeched open, the smell of old paper and dust hitting me like a memory I wasn't ready for. I could almost hear her voice reminding me, always know where your future stands. And right then, I realized I actually didn't. I found the folder after a few minutes, thin, blue, with her handwriting on the corner, for his education only. My chest tightened as I opened it. Inside were the fund details, bank letters, and the specific instructions she left for my parents. Every page repeated the same thing in different wording. The money was legally restricted for my college, only mine, no exceptions. No trips. No family needs. No parental discretion. I sank onto the floor, hands trembling as I flipped through the papers. They couldn't have touched this, I whispered to myself. Not legally. But they did. Which meant they either lied, or forged something. My stomach twisted at both possibilities. When I walked into Lily's room later that evening, she was lying on her bed scrolling through photos, looking like she didn't regret a single thing. Did you know the fund was restricted? I asked quietly. She didn't even look up. Mom said it didn't matter. They're the parents, they can use it how they want. Did you hear what I just said? My voice cracked. It wasn't theirs to use. She finally looked at me, eyes bored. You'll be fine. You always land on your feet. I needed this. That was the moment the last bit of doubt evaporated. They didn't just break my trust, they knowingly violated what my grandmother left for me. I walked out of her room without another word, clutching the documents in my hand, already knowing I couldn't let this go, not anymore. A few days after finding the documents, I was sitting alone in my room at home, staring at the copies I'd made, when my phone buzzed. It was my aunt, my grandmother's closest child. She rarely called unless something serious was happening. Her voice came through the speaker sharp and worried. Honey, is everything okay? Your mom posted something weird about family disagreements. I didn't want to dump everything on her, but the words slipped out before I could stop them. They took my college fund. All of it. There was a long, stunned silence on the line, so long I thought the call had dropped. Then she said, "They what?" Her voice cracked with a level of anger I had never heard from her. Your grandmother made that fund ironclad. She was terrified they'd try something like this. My heart stopped. What do you mean? Try something? She sighed heavily. Years ago, your parents approached her asking if they could borrow from your fund for some home renovations. She refused. They argued about it for months. She even threatened to move the account under my name because she didn't trust them. I felt the room tilt. My own parents had been planning this long before any money trouble. Why didn't anyone tell me? I thought she moved it. I didn't know they still had access. Her voice softened. She adored you. She wanted that money to be your escape from all the responsibility they put on you. I swallowed hard. The betrayal suddenly had roots years deep, layered, intentional. Aunt May, they forged something. They had to. The fund is restricted. She didn't hesitate. You need to protect yourself. Legally. Emotionally. All of it. They've crossed a line they can't uncross. For the first time since all this started, I felt something new rising in me, not hope, not anger, but clarity. The truth wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't desperation. It was a choice. And now I had proof. I didn't sleep that night. I lay there staring at the ceiling, replaying my aunt's words until they fused with the quiet rage pulsing in my chest. By morning, something in me had solidified, something sharp, steady, and unshakable. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to cry. I was going to confront them with the truth they thought I'd never find. When I walked into the kitchen, the sunlight was hitting the table, dust floating through the air like the whole house was pretending everything was normal. But nothing felt normal anymore. My dad looked up first. "You're up early," he said, like we were about to talk about breakfast. I placed the stack of documents on the table between us. "We're talking," I said quietly. My mom's fork froze halfway to her mouth. Lily glanced over from her phone, annoyed at the interruption. I didn't sit down. I didn't blink. I just stared at them while the weight of the documents settled into the silence. "What's all this?" my dad asked, trying to sound casual. "The fund was restricted," I said. "Legally. Grandma made it clear it was for my education only. You needed my signature. You forged something." My mom's face changed instantly, fear, guilt, and then anger. "Don't accuse us of something like that," she snapped. "You don't understand what we were dealing with." "Then explain," I said. "Explain why Lily's vacation mattered more than my future." Lily scoffed. "Oh my God, are you seriously bringing that up again?" I turned to her. "You knew it wasn't yours. You knew it wasn't family money." She shrugged. "Mom said it was fine. I trusted her." My dad slammed his hand on the table. "Enough. We're your parents. We made a decision. You'll get over it." I felt something inside me go cold. "No," I said. "You made a decision that ends any trust one had in you." My mom stood up, her voice trembling. "You're being dramatic. Families stick together through mistakes." I stared at them, these people who were supposed to protect me, and realized I didn't feel like their son in that moment. I felt like collateral damage. I picked up the documents. "If you can take my future away once," I said, "you can do it again. I'm done." And then I walked toward my room, knowing the next step would change everything. When I closed my bedroom door, I thought they would let me pack in peace. I was wrong. Within seconds, my mom was pounding on the door, her voice shaking with fury instead of remorse. "You are not walking out of this house over a misunderstanding," she yelled. My dad chimed in from the hallway, "Stop acting like a victim. We did what we had to do." Their voices blended together, loud, relentless, dismissive, until I felt my chest tighten, my breath getting shallow. It suddenly hit me that I wasn't safe here. Not emotionally. Not mentally. Not anymore. I shoved a few shirts and my laptop into my backpack. My hands were trembling. Every movement felt heavy, like I was pushing against the weight of everything they'd stolen from me. But the moment I opened the door to leave, my mom blocked the way. "You're not going anywhere," she said, eyes flashing. "You're our son. We can talk this out if you stop being dramatic." "I'm not being dramatic," I said quietly. "I'm trying to protect myself." Lily peeked over her shoulder, rolling her eyes. "You're so sensitive. It's not the end of the world. You can just take loans like everyone else." That sentence, said in that dismissive tone, was the blow that cracked something in me. "I had a fund," I snapped. "A fund Grandma made so I wouldn't have to take loans." My dad stepped forward, voice rising. "That money is gone. So either you get over it or you make life harder for all of us. Choose." I felt tears sting my eyes, but not from sadness, from hopelessness. From betrayal so deep it felt like I was drowning in it. "You already made that choice for me," I whispered. I pushed past them, feeling my dad's hand graze my shoulder as if debating whether to stop me physically. But he didn't. They let me walk out. They let me leave with nothing but a backpack and a future they'd emptied. When the front door closed behind me, the cold air hit my face, and I realized I didn't even have a place to go. No plan. No safety. No family. Just the crushing weight of being completely alone. The first night away from home didn't feel like freedom. It felt like falling. I sat on my friend Mateo's couch, staring at the ceiling while the hum of the refrigerator filled the silence. My whole life felt like it had been yanked out from under me in a single moment. I kept replaying everything: my grandmother's voice, the documents, my parents' faces, not understanding how people who raised me could watch me walk into uncertainty without flinching. Mateo handed me a blanket and said, "You can stay as long as you need, man." But the shame simmering in my chest made it hard to breathe. Over the next few days, I applied for every scholarship, grant, and work-study program I could find. Most were long shots. Some required essays I wrote with trembling hands at 3 a.m. But one application stopped me cold: a state-funded grant for students who lost access to education due to family instability and financial interference. It felt like the universe had dropped it into my lap. I read the eligibility requirements 3 times before whispering, "Holy crap, this is literally my situation." Still, I wasn't sure if I was reaching. Maybe I was too late. Maybe they wouldn't believe me. But I applied anyway, attaching copies of the bank documents, my grandmother's instructions, and a statement describing everything. Writing that statement was the hardest thing I've ever done. It felt like confessing my family's darkest secrets to strangers. 2 days later, my aunt called again. "I talked to a lawyer," she said. "Based on what you found, your parents likely committed financial misconduct. You have grounds to take action." My breath hitched. Wait. I could actually fight this? She didn't hesitate. "And you should. Your grandmother fought for your future. Now you need to fight for it too." For the first time in weeks, the fog around my brain lifted. A spark, small but stubborn, ignited inside me. Maybe I wasn't powerless. Maybe there was a way forward. And then, the next morning, I got an email notification that changed everything. The subject line read, "Your application status has been updated." My hand shook as I clicked it. When I opened the email, my heart was pounding so loudly it felt like it echoed through Mateo's apartment. For a second, the words blurred together. I had to blink, reread, blink again before my brain accepted what I was seeing. "Congratulations. You have been awarded the State Education Recovery Grant." I didn't breathe for a full 5 seconds. Then it hit me like a tidal wave: relief, disbelief, gratitude, something sharp and bright cutting through the darkness I'd been drowning in. I sank back into the couch, whispering, "I got it. I actually got it." Mateo rushed over. "Dude, what happened? Good news or bad?" I laughed, an ugly, shaky laugh. "Good. Really good." He grabbed my shoulders. "See? You're not done. This isn't the end for you." For the first time, I let myself believe he might be right. The grant didn't solve everything, but it covered tuition, the part my parents stole, the part that mattered most. With that foundation, I started piecing together the rest of my life. My aunt helped me find a cheap room to rent in an older neighbor's house. It wasn't anything special, creaky floors, drafty windows, the smell of lavender cleaner and old books, but it was mine. A place untouched by betrayal. I picked up extra shifts at work. I lived off dollar meals and instant noodles. I budgeted every single penny like it was sacred. And in the quiet moments, those long hours between work and classes, I started reading about investments. My grandmother had always told me, build something that no one can take from you. Those words hit differently now. So I opened a small investment account with what little savings I had left. Nothing huge. Just enough to feel like I was planting a seed she'd be proud of. Meanwhile, the family narrative twisted into something unrecognizable. My parents told relatives I'd abandoned them. They made themselves the victims. But this time, my aunt shut their lies down hard. He didn't abandon you, she told them. You abandoned him first. And as much as their drama hurt, I felt something new settling into my chest, quiet strength. My life wasn't fixed. But for the first time, it was mine. I should have expected it, but it still caught me off guard, the sudden shift from silence to concern. It happened on a quiet Thursday evening while I was organizing textbooks on the little desk in my rented room. A sharp knock rattled the front door. Mrs. Henderson, the woman I rented from, called out, "Sweetheart, your parents are here." My stomach dropped. I froze, my fingers still gripping the edge of a binder. They hadn't reached out in weeks except for a few passive-aggressive texts I'd ignored. So why show up now? I stepped into the living room, and there they were, my mom with overly shiny eyes, my dad with forced calm, and Lily standing behind them like she had been dragged against her will. My mom rushed forward. "Sweetie, we're worried about you," she said, voice trembling just enough to look convincing. I kept my distance. "You weren't worried when I walked out with nothing." My dad sighed heavily. "We made mistakes, okay? But you don't get to cut us off forever." Lily chimed in, arms crossed. "Yeah, can we just move on? My trip wasn't even that big of a deal." I let out a bitter laugh. "You spent my future on it." My mom flinched, but then her expression hardened. "We heard you got some kind of grant," she said slowly. "That's wonderful. It means things worked out." I felt the meaning under her words like a blade pressed against my ribs. They weren't here because they missed me. They were here because they realized I no longer needed them. Because I had slipped beyond their control. So, my dad asked, "Can we talk about you coming back home now? It would be better for everyone." I looked at them, these people who called my pain drama, who never apologized, who acted like my recovery erased their betrayal. "Are you going to pay back the fund?" I asked calmly. Their faces shifted instantly. My dad's jaw clenched. My mom's mouth tightened. Lily scoffed under her breath. "I thought so," I said quietly. I stepped back, placing a hand on the door. "I need space. Real space." And I closed it on their stunned faces, feeling a strange combination of fear and relief. They came expecting me to crumble. But I didn't. I thought shutting the door on them would be the end of it, but families like mine don't let go quietly. A week later, I found out my parents were planning a big family dinner at my aunt's house, one they insisted I attend. At first, I wasn't going to go. I didn't want the whispers, the guilt-tripping, the staged sympathy. But my aunt called me privately and said, "Come. You need to hear what they've been telling everyone." Her tone was tight, angry. That was enough for me. The moment I walked into her living room, every conversation stopped like someone hit mute. My mother stood up, hand pressed to her chest. "Oh, thank goodness," she breathed, as if she'd summoned me. My dad forced a smile. "We've all been worried sick." I stayed near the doorway. "Really? Worried enough to lie about why I left?" My uncle frowned. "Your parents said you ran off because you didn't want to work for college. That you expected everything handed to you." I almost laughed, it was so twisted, so far from the truth, I didn't know whether to cry or scream. My aunt stepped forward. "Show them," she whispered. So I did. I placed the documents on the dining table, the restrictions, the forged signatures, the bank statements. Gasps spread around the room like ripples in water. My mom's face drained of color. My dad stiffened, jaw locked. Lily backed up as if the papers were radioactive. "This is what really happened," I said. My voice didn't shake. Not once. They didn't borrow my fund. They didn't use it for the family. They used it for a trip. For Lily. And they lied to all of you about it. My mom sputtered, we were desperate." My aunt cut her off sharply. "No. You were selfish. There's a difference." Lily's voice cracked. "I didn't know." I met her eyes. "Yes, you did." Silence filled the room, thick and suffocating. Every relative stared at them with a mix of shock and disappointment. For the first time, my parents had to stand in the consequences of their own choices, with no way to spin it, no one to shield them, no lie left to tell. I picked up the documents and stepped back. "I'm not coming home," I said quietly. "You broke something you can't repair." And as I walked toward the door, nobody stopped me. Walking out of that dinner felt like stepping out of a burning house. My clothes didn't smell like smoke, but the memories did. For the first time in months, the night air didn't feel suffocating. It felt clean. Cold. Honest. I didn't go back to Mateo's. I went straight to my tiny rented room, closed the door behind me, and just stood there, breathing. Slow. Steady. Free. I expected to feel guilt or doubt or that familiar pull of obligation, but there was nothing. Just the quiet hum of a life that finally belonged to me. Cutting contact wasn't dramatic. It wasn't some big announcement. It was a slow fading, blocking numbers, muting group chats, ignoring messages that swung wildly between guilt trips and fake affection. My mom texted, "A real son wouldn't abandon his family." I blocked her. My dad wrote, "We raised you better than this." Blocked. Lily sent, "I'm sorry if you felt hurt, but can't we move on?" I blocked her too. I didn't know any of them access to me, not after everything they took. With the noise gone, I focused on rebuilding with both hands. Classes started, and I threw myself into them like my life depended on it, because in many ways, it did. I worked shifts, saved aggressively, and kept investing small amounts every month. Watching those numbers grow, even by a few dollars, felt like watching my own strength return piece by piece. Like planting something my parents could never rip out of the ground again. And slowly, life got brighter. My grades climbed. My confidence returned. I woke up without dread. I studied in cafes, laughed with classmates, made plans that weren't tethered to anyone else's selfish choices. Some nights, I'd lie awake imagining my grandmother sitting beside me, proud. I like to think she'd nod and say, "You did exactly what you were meant to do." The truth is, I didn't lose a family. I survived one. And the future I'm building now, the one funded by my own grit, my aunt's support, and the pieces of hope my grandmother left behind, belongs entirely to me. They took my college fund. But they didn't take my future. And they'll never have that power again.